Let's give it up for Adam and Elmo.
Yeah, hello everyone. I guess all the people who just left don't realize this is the only room that the aircon actually works, so you've all made the right choice. Yeah, obviously we'd say that anyway, but yeah, you've definitely made the right choice. So yeah, good to meet you all. My name is Adam Boynton. I work on security strategy here at Jamf, and yeah, I have the pleasure to be joined by Elmo on stage.
Yeah, I'm Elmo. I work as a sales engineer for Jamf, covering our Central and Eastern European and Middle East and Africa regions. So happy to help Adam today in doing some technical demoing live, so it should be fun.
Yeah, I guess I have the easy job. Elmo's going to be doing the live demos, which always go to plan. So
hopefully.
Yes.
Hopefully.
So I mentioned I work on security strategy, and I guess you're probably thinking, what does that mean? And I'm actually also a father. I've got a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old. And my son, the other day, who's 5, asked me what I do for work. And he's being 5, he's like, loves if I was like a fireman or an army man, something action-like. So trying to explain what I actually do to him was a bit of a challenge. But I landed on, I tell people stories. And these stories are often about how the good guys, you, protect yourselves against the bad guys. So hopefully that's a cooler title than security strategy. But this is the story we're going to tell you today. So we've got quite a cool agenda. We're going to, as I said, the fun is at the live demo section, but we're going to set the scene a little bit and talk about why it pays to think about security at the start of your macOS deployment. So I know I'm preaching to the choir here, but there are some of you in the audience that are maybe here for the first time. Maybe you're just starting to deploy and manage and secure Apple devices. And equally, there's some of you in the audience that have been doing this as long as Jamf had. So I guess these stats really only say one thing, and we're all going to be deploying a lot more Apple devices in the next year and the years to come beyond that. So what we're trying to show with this session is how we would answer this question. So again, I appreciate there's some of you in this audience that probably, this isn't hypothetical. You've maybe faced this question and dilemma before. And this is also what we want to talk about with you at the end of the day at the live lounge sessions that Ben and Nick have kind of already alluded to, where, yeah, if any of you have sort of done this previously, we'd love to hear whether you've done anything differently or what we're about to show you, you would prioritize that. I know, Elmo, you've also had experience.
Yeah, prior to working at Jamf, I definitely had to do this once or twice, and I would probably definitely do it differently today than I did then, and also with a bit of a different security focus than what I had back then, which was more of a Mac admin, right? So I think the lines are getting blurred nowadays in terms of what we all do for our day jobs as well. So
yeah, we're going to answer that question, but with our security hats on. So the quote on screen here, this was actually something that one of our Apple colleagues or friends, if you like, an engineer who worked at Apple shared with me. He said, what we need to do is we need to make the most secure way the easiest way. And that really resonated with me, and that's what we're going to show you here in terms of how that combination of Apple and Jamf, by default, without even realizing it, you're already doing the most secure way, and also for an end user, the easiest way. So I'm a bit of a history nerd, so I wanted to I was trying to think about how I could weave that into this session, and we landed on castle analogy, and this is going to be a bit of a theme here, so please do bear with me. So on screen here, these are 2 castles. Points to anyone who can recognize which ones they are, but the one on the left is called Crac de Chevalier. It's in Syria, and it was built in 1031. Now, as you can probably tell by the picture, they built it with security in mind from the start. So there's concentric fortifications. There was massive grain stores to basically withhold or withstand sieges that would last multiple years. Every building had arrow slits built in, so archers could fire out. And it had like a moat and drawbridge built on top of a hill. And the castle lasted for over 300 years. And actually, it was only sacked by the Mamluks, where they essentially forged a letter of surrender to trick their way into the castle, and then were able to do it. So social engineering has been around longer than you may think. Now, compare that to the one on the right. Now, the one on the right, this was a little bit closer to home. It's Chateau Galliard. It's built in Normandy. It was built by Richard the Lionheart around about the 12th century. It was built very quickly, though, and the purpose was to defend Normandy against the French. This castle, they built it out of chalk. Anyone who's built a castle, I don't expect anyone, chalk's probably not the material that you would use for that, but also they rushed it. They built it within 2 years, and the actual castle only lasted 3 years. And the reason why that was sacked was they hadn't secured the waste in and out of the castle, so basically the attackers were able to find their way into the castle through where the waste would exit and sack the castle within a couple of years. So, like I said, we're going to kind of stick with that castle analogy, but the idea is if you build security in mind from the start, you set yourselves up far better than if you rush that. So, first and foremost, the fact that you've chosen, or indeed your company has Apple devices, is why you have a castle in the first place. And with the built-in features that you get, especially with macOS, it's essentially like having your castle in the best strategic spot, so on top of the hill. So like I said, I'm going to stick with this castle analogy. So this image is taken from our good friends at Apple. So secure by design, you have macOS's Unix-based foundation, mandatory access controls, system integrity protection. It's all about that ensures that privileged users and also malware can't easily tamper with the system files or kernel extensions within Mac. You then got integrated features like Gatekeeper and app sandboxing, so it makes compromising macOS significantly harder than any other platform. And a clear example of this in action, where this secure by design approach prevented a compromise, but one that succeeded on another platform, in this case Windows, is the 3CX supply chain attack back in 2023 involving the pull rat backdoor malware. I always love the names they come up with malware. So pull rat backdoor malware. So what happened on Windows machines? It led to successful execution of malware. They essentially compromised the 3CX application, and then were able to push a Trojanized version through legitimate updates of the app. So on Windows, the malware was successfully executed. It led to credential theft and lateral movement within the network. On macOS, because you had Apple's notarization and also Gatekeeper, the variant of this Trojanized application, Gatekeeper warned users if they tried to install it. So they'd have to explicitly override the Gatekeeper warning to install it. And then because of the app notarization, Apple were able to quickly revoke the developer ID, so any further installs or launches of the app were blocked. And Jamf Protect also helped out here. So nice clear example of that secure by design approach in action. However, despite these world-class protections, it's not immune. So hopefully you'd have noticed, just week before last, we produced our most recent Jamf 360 report. So this is where we analyze data over a 12-month period. What we found on macOS is that our cyber criminals are persistently trying to find ways to bypass and undermine these built-in protections. So we're finding attackers are using legitimate tools to try and deliver malware to a device, or they're leveraging vulnerabilities where devices aren't on the latest OS version, or applications in some instances, or they're trying to exploit the end users. So in essence, macOS is highly secure by design, but once an attacker is able to potentially sneak past these layers, especially via like end user sort of trust or mistrust, then built-in measures need to be reinforced. So you might be thinking, great, I understand, I need to put some additional security onto my Mac, and hey, I've got access to some tooling that we use on our Windows machines, and they say they support Mac now, let's put that on there. Don't even think about it. Now, this is an analogy given to me by a partner, and he basically was explaining that trying to put a Windows security tool onto a Mac is like putting tires that are built for a Boeing 787 onto an F1 car. So I like that analogy. Hopefully it makes sense to you as well. Cool. So let's have a look at how that combination of Apple and Jamf help you, I guess, become too expensive for an attacker to try and breach you. That's the goal here. An attacker would see your setup infrastructure, think, I'm not even going to bother to try and exploit that because it's far too secure. So Where do I start? Now, these are some of the things that should be done by default. Now, we have a strict 45-minute cutoff for this session, so we're not going to go through each and every one of these, but we have highlighted a couple. They're not necessarily the ones that are most important by priority, but ones we find interesting, we thought you would find interesting. So I guess going back to our castle analogy, these are your critical defenses, the parts of your castle that must be rock solid from day one. So we've already highlighted the built-in macOS protection stack. So as I said, these are integral for that deployment on day one, all the way through to day 10,000 of the Mac's lifecycle. But we do need to ensure that they are running correctly across all of your devices at all times. So we can make them mandatory from the start with Jamf Pro, as some of you will know, but we then need to monitor them throughout. And this is where Jamf Protect comes in. So with Jamf Protect, you get real-time visibility into how they're actually working. So castle theme, Apple provides the stone, Jamf Protect is your lookout towers. Okay? For each of these product features, I've linked them to a castle. So when I show you the product feature, try and guess how I'm going to somehow make the analogy work. So as we said, this can all be set mandatory through MDM, so already a little bit safe here, but why do we need to monitor them? And I guess this is for larger events, spreading events. We need visibility. If something is going around, you really want to know what is happening. So we need a way for admins and security teams to get this information as quickly as possible.
So who here is familiar with some of the Apple terms that we've already brought up? System integrity protection, Gatekeeper, Protect. Any hands up, right? People have at least heard of these, right? So okay, that's good. Luckily, there's no wastewater exits on Mac devices, so we don't have that vulnerability to watch out for. But people are targeting Mac more, right? And Apple luckily has a lot of great features that we can actually also leverage when it comes to our Jamf Protect tooling. Let's have a quick look in Protect. Keep in mind, at its core, Protect is a threat prevention agent that we can deploy out to our Mac devices. Adam's actually got a challenge for me later in terms of the deployment side, so we'll get to that later, but just keep that in mind as we go along here. But what I wanted to highlight here, in line with Adam's point, is we actually, in our Overview tab, have a dedicated Apple security section. If you come in here, you get some really useful information of what's already running on your Apple fleet, even if you're not deploying a endpoint security solution per se. Even if you haven't deployed full Jamf Protect, if you will. So we get some details like, is Protect up to date? Is Gatekeeper enabled? And we could actually directly view as well some of the devices that are not or don't have this enabled. So we could work with our IT admin teams to make sure that these get applied through the MDM side. It's all about working together in terms of how security and the more traditional MDM can work together to build our castle, if you will. But I just wanted to highlight here, we have some very useful detections that we actually give you alerts on as well. So as in the previous slide, Adam showed, the end user gets notified, right, if there's Apple security events on their Mac devices, but it is very vital that we also actually know about those. So I'm going to click on some recent Gatekeeper events. We also have some very useful filtering tools up here. So if you are ever in this yourself, you can actually create or add your own filters to view exactly what's applicable. But right now, I'm just looking at Gatekeeper events that happened in or were created in the last 7 days. So let's click on this one and see what information we get. We can see this was an event that was blocked because it was unsigned or unknown by Gatekeeper. So this isn't Jamf Protect doing the work, right? This is Apple's native security solutions blocking potential threat actors from your Mac devices. But we give you that in-depth detail into what exactly occurred, and if you have maybe certain security team members who want to delve deeper into this information, they can very much do so. So we actually give you the exact path, for example, of the file. We can even look at things like process events and so on. Now, this was already blocked, so if I'm someone reviewing this, I can also actually change the status in here to maybe in progress or resolved. But it's visibility where you can see if this was maybe one user, who tried to download a certain app themselves and hey, it happened to be malicious, or if it's more of a targeted attack across your organization, for example, you might be seeing not just one of these, but you might be seeing 10, 20, 30, maybe even more, right? Depends on how many Macs you have. So it's a really cool inbuilt feature that you should definitely be checking out if you're not familiar with Jamf Protect and that capability.
Cool. And yeah, I guess continuing on that theme, don't forget to check out this session on compliance benchmarks. Appreciate it's slightly different, but if you are on about or want to leverage a lot of this inbuilt security features, then session not to be missed. Cool. So within Jamf Pro, I'm sure there's a lot of you in this room that know there are several features that ensure a successful deployment, which will allow you to achieve that zero-touch setup and security from first login. And one of our most popular features is the enrollment customization piece. So how does this link to our castle theme? I guess, yeah, critical to every castle's infrastructure is the entrance. So every knight that comes through is authenticated and provisioned. So we probably all understand the value to the end user with a customized enrollment, which is unique to them and your company. But what security benefits does that bring? Well, you can display your acceptable usage policy or security warnings as part of that setup process. You can ensure that a user sees and acknowledges any compliance requirements. And importantly, and maybe the most important one from a security point of view, is to be able to set up that IDP integration, identity integration, to ensure that only verified users can connect. So there are several benefits to including this IDP SSO integration to your enrollment. And in particular, there is a trend to maybe be concerned about or keep an eye on. Now, with this remote working, hybrid working, I'm sure everyone in this room at some point over the last 5 years has had to ship devices directly to an end user's home. And in the States, what they saw last year was over $12 billion of goods were stolen by what's called porch pirate attacks. So essentially, an attacker is tracking a delivery company, or not attacker, but someone is tracking a delivery company. As soon as the delivery is made, they're either stealing it off the porch, hence the name, or at some point during that process. So before the user actually gets their hand on it, the device is nicked or stolen. So let's maybe just demonstrate how enrollment customization can help with that amongst some of the other security benefits.
Yeah, so SSO is a term that we hear all the time. We've heard it many times today already, right? How it ties in with Jamf account. I'm sure there's many in the room who have been using our own tools like Jamf Connect for quite a while, right? Which has its own integrations to user login and the account creation side. So there's a lot we can do in SSO within our Jamf products already. But one that's easy to overlook, I guess, right, is having this gate in place. So if we go to enrollment customizations in our settings here, I've already pre-prepared a little bit of a enrollment customization for my devices, but let's edit it together. I've got a little welcome screen that my users will see when they first open up their Mac. So you can customize this as you see fit, right? Hope you are enjoying the show so far, by the way. And I'm just going to add a pane here. I've already set up single sign-on in my Jamf Pro settings, so it's already there. So I can just call upon it and leverage it during the initial setup phase. So user will not be able to go through that automated device enrollment unless they authenticate themselves first. So that's the key here is unless they prove that, hey, Adam works for Jamf, he won't be able to go forward with the enrollment of that device. This is pretty easy. This is really the only drop-down that I need to select here. But we do have an additional option. If you are still using Jamf Connect, this can also work alongside things like Platform SSO, so don't worry about that as well. But you can actually enable this to pass user information as well to Jamf Connect. You can then tie in the account name or full name details that are maybe unique to your IDP here. So I'm just going to call this one SSO, and we'll click Add, and we've got that ready to go. Now, if we want to see what it looks like for the end user, we can actually do that within Jamf Pro as well, which is really, really useful. So you can actually customize the colors, even the images. You can view it on Mac, iPhone, even iPad here. So we'll see that welcome screen that I've got, and then this would load a web view for my IDP, whatever web view that I've configured on that side. So maybe we can see it in action as well, just so that you believe me in terms of what it looks like for the end user. But this is the user opening up their new device that hopefully has gone to the correct person. How do we verify that it's gone to the correct person? Well, through that single sign-on enrollment customization. So the user is going to select their language and accessibility options, connect to the network, and it will go through the activation. It's going to automatically talk to Jamf Pro then, and it's going to pull in those exact settings that we just configured. So really quick and easy, but again, let's just make sure we don't have just anyone going through and setting up a device that we have within the organization.
Cool. So we started to push down apps as part of that automated enrollment. We've integrated IDP. We're monitoring built-in security. So what's next? So these apps and operating systems are secure and great on day one, but how do we keep them that way throughout the Mac and Castle's lifecycle? So we need to implement automated app and OS patching. So automated OS and app updates ensure your walls stay intact. And then Jamf Protect is, with our vulnerability insight, is going to highlight any cracks before attackers could exploit them. That's probably the weakest analogy I had. They get better, trust me. Now, this isn't an image of our CISO, Andy Smeaton, but he did very kindly offer this quote. So I know there maybe are some CISOs in the audience today, but there's also maybe those that work with CISOs. And he really, when I was telling him about the session, this was the first thing he said to me in terms of his priority as a CISO is implement a solid patching program. So it's incredibly important for security leaders.
So let's see it in action. We've already heard a few things about our Jamf App Catalog app installers this morning, but let's actually see how it works in practice and leverage some of the new features that we've got in line with this Castle theme that we've got going today. I've already deployed quite a lot of apps through our Jamf App Catalog. So again, this is our app repository, if you will, where we help you deploy third-party software to your macOS devices. One of my favorite apps that I like to use for troubleshooting or just checking that everything's okay with our end-user devices is Jamf Check. If you haven't seen this app before, definitely note it down and have a look afterwards. So how can I make sure that my applications are fully up to date and well, make it easy for me, but also for the end user? Let's look at some options that we've got here together. I've already got selected install automatically. That's simple enough. I've got the update method as automatic. So that might be, you might think, okay, great, we're all set and we can leave it. Yeah, we could leave it there, but I think part of coming back to what Adam mentioned at the start, right? Let's make the secure way, the easiest way as well for our end users. So we can take it a step further than just having these enabled. Some really useful options for admins, first and foremost, are the ability to log event notifications for this app. Now, you will need to enable these in your account notification settings in Jamf Pro. But what does this mean? It just means if this is a critical app that I want to make sure is updated and all of my devices get it more or less day one, I can actually be notified first thing when I log in the morning in Jamf that, hey, there's an update available for Jamf Check. So I'm at least aware of it, right? I don't need to go manually digging for that information. I've also already got the install supporting configuration profiles option selected here, which means if this application had its own update options or mechanism built into that app, we can actually override those because, hey, I'm controlling these options already through Jamf. So that's great. But again, let's make it the easiest for the end user as well. So that's where our end user experience options come in. I've already outlined some custom options here, but this is around notification frequency. We can change this between hours, days, weeks for the end user. We can also give some messaging. Maybe if we make a little bit of customization in terms of the messaging, users might be maybe more likely to actually interact with that message rather than just seeing some default update message that they see a million times. So we can actually change that message here. I'm telling my users, hey, time to update whenever there's a new version available. And importantly, we can set an update deadline as well. So I've got it set to 1 week. And we have options on force quit messaging, as well as quite a few other things. We can even have options for the complete message, so maybe even thanking our users, right, for hey, updating really swiftly. So it does go a long way. But this is for one individual app here. This is great. I'm gonna save this. But keep in mind, you can control these as well within the settings of Jamf Pro. So if you'd rather have a more so global option for these, just search for app installers, and we'll have some options around the end user experience here that we can set globally for all apps. So you don't need to go and do that every time for all of those apps that I had already deployed. So just keep that in mind. And recently as well, we've added some options in terms of the actual deployment side for app installers. So if you're an admin and you want a bit more granular control over the batch size, so the amount of commands that go through, you can actually customize this and change that. But I think more importantly, at least for me, is the frequency, so how frequently the install commands can be sent from Jamf, as well as the days, right? We maybe don't want Jamf sending updates on a Saturday or Sunday to users because, well, they probably won't be on their devices and they might not see it then. So we can actually customize that as well within here. Now, the very last thing I'll show on app installers is if we actually jump back to Mac apps, I'm going to leave that for now. If you have maybe for compliance reasons, standards for having to have an app at a certain version and maybe not automating just about everything, keep in mind if you do have the update method selected as manual, you do get an option here to also choose individual versions. So right now there's only one new version available of this app, but if there were multiple, you can actually deploy a very specific version as well, if you again have maybe a need to test that the latest versions are actually up to your organizational standard. So that's a nice little tidbit at the end as well in terms of it's great to automate, but we've also got some manual options as well thrown in there. So
cool. And yeah, so that's obviously the app updates, and then the OS updates. Don't miss the session directly after this. I can see him over there. Luke is running. Yeah, I think Luke's feeling pumped for the session. I think he gave
Elmo. Well, I was talking to Luke last night, and I said, yeah, how do you think your session's going to go? And he says, it might be okay. So, I mean.
Yeah. You want a session that might be okay? Don't miss this one. So, we've mentioned Jamf Protect a couple of times already, so a bit of audience participation. Who's using Jamf Protect today? Hands up. Yeah. Now, who has a Jamf for Mac or Business Plan license but isn't using Protect? I knew there'd be one. Thank you. So far, we've mainly spoke about Protect for its reporting capabilities, but yeah, obviously having the best endpoint protection in place alongside these built-in security features is critical to defend against the trends I mentioned earlier, the vulnerability, attackers abusing vulnerabilities or social engineering attacks. So this is probably the most obvious one. Jamf Protect is your knights, okay? They ensure that no rogue actors hide behind the walls. So I mentioned earlier why having these security tools that are purpose-built for Apple is really important. So I won't go over that again, but yeah, for those that maybe have access to Protect but don't use it, you might be thinking, okay, how easy it is to get this set up. And Elmo kind of alluded to this earlier. So we did this session at Munich for Jamf Nation Live Munich last week, and Elmo's colleague in Germany managed to deploy Jamf Protect live in under 3 minutes. So I'm going to get my phone out, and we are going to put a bit of jeopardy to this this live demo. See if Elmo can beat 3 minutes. Cool.
All right, under pressure. Right, we're in Protect. We're going to add an API client in Protect. I'm just going to call this Pro because, well, we're in a rush. Okay, you can have better naming conventions in your organization if you want here. You'll need to take down this secret, right? As it says, it will not be shown again. So I've got my trusty notes here. Maybe put it in a more secure place again if you're actually deploying this out in your organization. There's a few details that we'll need here. We'll still need the client ID. So I've got the secret, I've got the ID, and I've also got this API URL. So let's take all this information, go into the settings of Pro, begin the registration. We need the API. So that is, let me grab it here, the API URL. It's a bit hard to copy. We'll pop this down, and we only have 2 more details that we need now, right? We've got the client ID, and we've got the password. This is all that we need to register and basically integrate Jamf Pro with Protect. Once this is done, we can edit this. We'll already see some plans actually coming in. So these are from Protect, but I can automatically deploy Jamf Protect. It's already synced. This is great. So I'm just going to choose my default plan. We'll go into computers here. Let me go back. I'll just sync it once more. And we should see these populate, hopefully. We'll wait. Normally, Jamf Pro automatically syncs with Protect, right? It's going to pull these. If you ever make changes to, for example, a plan, it will automatically find that. All I need to now add is a scope. So I'm just going to choose here all computers and all users because I want this to go out to all of my devices, and click Save. Now, the Mac that I'm on, actually, if we want to even do a test here, I don't know if, Adam, you were timing me there, but it should be on our device now. So if we actually have a look, we should be able to even see it appear on this Mac, barring network conditions here, in just a second. So, but yeah, that's all that you need to get that integration done. In the future, if you add new plans in Protect, they'll automatically show up in Pro. So you might not always use the same plan for all of your devices, right? But keep in mind that Protect has a lot of those features like telemetry, logging, that we can customize, as well as analytics that we can also customize. So you can build different plans to deploy out to different user groups as well. But yeah, that's how quick and easy it is.
2 minutes, 5 seconds.
All right.
Yes, nicely done. So as we move on, we've got our apps managed, but they aren't obviously the only things that users use. So what about browsers? So browsers are like our drawbridges. They are great for access, but dangerous if you leave them unguarded. So what we're doing here with Jamf Protect in particular is we're keeping browsers protected either through sort of OS updates or security of them. So the same way that apps have vulnerability, as do browsers. So there was a quite well-known or documented one in Chrome, which really the only fix to this vulnerability was by updating the Chrome browser. But also, there's a lot of shadow browsing that happens these days. A lot of applications that users use have their own built-in browser. So you might think you've got Safari managed and controlled and locked down, but users aren't just using one browser, or even without even realizing. So we want to ensure that we have policies in place that offer safer browsing to users, no matter what browser they're ultimately using. So I mentioned Safari. This can automatically be managed through Pro, but what about the other browsers? So Elmo's going to do a nice demo of the Security Cloud.
Yeah, how many here, if we have a raise of hand, manage a specific browser on macOS? Would you confidently say, okay, so probably half. Now, those who did raise their hands, your users are probably still trying to or actually using other browsers as well. I would be quite confident of that, right? So we at Jamf, we of course have ways that we can manage browsers, right? We already saw that we can manage the installation, updating all of that through our Jamf app catalog, our app installers. But what about those browsers that we don't maybe have a control on? Or what about the content within our managed browsers even that our users are trying to access? That's where our Jamf Security Cloud comes into play, right? It's part of Jamf Protect. If we have a look at some of the options that we've got in here, maybe you'll kind of understand what I'm getting at here, right? Things like, well, content filtering. Maybe we don't have a huge need to control everything, right? But we might have some organizational standards that we'll want to set through content filtering policies. Because this is really, if we think about it, it's a part of managing a browser, right? And the resources that users are accessing through those browsers. So we've already built some categories that you can leverage here. I've got one, for example, generative AI. If we had a certain organizational need, I can block either the entire category or I can block just an individual subcategory within that. So it's really quick and easy to actually get going. You've also got group policies. So if you don't need to apply these to everyone within your organization, you can have different groups of users and apply these across the organization. But also managing browsers, we also probably want to manage not just the content that users are getting at in those browsers, but what about on the security side, right? Phishing exists not just in corporate emails, it exists in browsers and the content that users are accessing within them. So we've got inbuilt network threat prevention options, if you will, for things like phishing, cryptojacking, spam. These can all automatically be active with an auto response to block as well. So we have Jamf Protect the threat prevention agent. That's also highlighting our Apple securities on our macOS devices. We have our way of deploying and updating the actual browsers that we need through our app installers. And then we've got the content filtering and the threat prevention side also at the network level. So it kind of ties it all together in terms of how we can manage our browsers.
Awesome. So we've got a pretty solid castle at this point, but we need to make sure we're taking advantage of all the latest technology and magic that Apple provide. And in this instance, I'm referring to Declarative Device Management. So there is a dedicated session on blueprints coming up, so we won't spend loads of time here, but it's all about setting up automated on-device enforcement that continues even if the MDM server is offline. So hopefully any Harry Potter fan will get the reference here. I was particularly proud of this one. So hopefully you are aware of what DDM is by now. It's a shift from being reactive to resilient. So from hoping that your scripts will fire to knowing that your Mac will correct itself even when it's offline. So Declarative Device Management is Apple's answer to scalable, tamper-proof security, and Jamf Blueprints is what allows you to tap into that power from day one. So to give you an example of this from a security point of view, if malware does somehow make it onto the Mac, it maintains persistence by quietly installing launch agents or daemons in the background. So with macOS 15, background task management gives us the power to declaratively control exactly which background tasks are allowed, and everything else then is blocked. So we can then use Jamf Blueprints, and we'll show you in a second, to securely deploy zip scripts and launch plist to tamper-resistant locations, so you get full visibility and offline enforcement.
Yeah, so let's have, excuse me, let's have a quick run through, right? Let's call this blueprint JNL. Actually, I've already got one that name, so I'm just going to go JNL 2025. And we have a bunch of declarations in here. You already heard this morning how we're adding more and more here all the time. The one that I'm looking for today is specifically around the background service tasks. You might not be familiar with these, but traditionally, we would deploy things like scripts, perhaps, through Jamf Pro's policies, right? You need to upload a script into Jamf Pro. You need to then create a policy. Clearly, my voice is going now, so that's good. We're almost at the end, luckily. But if we choose a service background task, I can just drag it here and begin configuring. I'm just going to have a few shortcuts that I've enabled here. I'm going to choose the task type. Now, you could host a data URL yourself. I've already actually got one that I can call upon here. It's relatively quick to fill out. The important stuff here is the launch daemon. So I also have a URL for this. And I'll choose the content type. This is a plist. So this is a daemon that I can actually install on my Mac devices that are in scope of this. And it's pulling it directly from a data URL, right? Rather than uploading a script to Jamf Pro, building a policy, and doing it that way. So it's basically just a way of automating. Also, if there's updates to this, it will actually automatically apply them through that data URL as well. So I'm just going to click Save here. We can then choose a scope. I can choose All Managed Clients. Click Save. And lastly, deploy. And yeah, we're done.
Easy as that. Like I said, there's a whole session on blueprints coming up later on, so yeah, make sure to not miss that one. So we've automated quite a lot, but sometimes the user needs to take action that often requires giving them additional controls or access on the device. So Jamf's Privilege Elevation allows you to do that. However, we do need to have something in place and make sure that this is temporary, okay? So no handing out the master keys to our castle. So setting this up is incredibly simple, offers numerous benefits that you can expect to see something like this on screen now. And I don't know if this one is a live demo or just a pre-recorded one.
Yep.
Yeah,
we've just got an example of this, right? We've got an end user. Their Mac is already managed. We've already got our security tools there on that device. but maybe they need to do something that requires admin privileges, right? So we actually can go directly in Self-Service Plus. They can choose the option to elevate their privileges. So this is a standard user who will now only temporarily gain admin access on this device. Now they can go in and add a printer or do whatever else would be needed. They even have visibility of this timer, so it's super quick and easy for the end user to know exactly how much time they have to fulfill a certain task. Because let's be honest, our end users will always say that they need to be admins, right? But, well, do they? I think probably not. So this is a nice compromise where, again, end users won't be too angry about it because, well, they can still gain access when needed.
Yeah, and here's an example of what this would look like from a security point of view into a SIEM. So this is elastic SIEM, so you can then get this information when a user does elevate their privilege, and you can also report on telemetry to see any unauthorized or indeed authorized elevations. And speaking of telemetry, it's like we planned this. So we're feeling pretty secure in our castle right now, but we still need to be alert to future threats. So with Jamf's telemetry, you can hunt threats, you can audit configurations, you can redefine your castle's design. So you get real-time insight into everything that's happening inside and outside of the castle walls. So who's moved where, what was run, what looked unusual. So yeah, the beacons are lit, Gondor calls for aid, and Jamf will answer. So hopefully we are familiar with what endpoint telemetry is. It's the continuous collection of data from endpoints, capturing key events such as software usage or system changes, user behaviors. So put simply, it's your record of everything that's happening on each endpoint, and it helps you answer the questions you can see on screen here. So our telemetry feature, and we constantly are adding more and more to this, but it really gives you insight into everything that's happening across your Mac, and there's a lot that's happening on these powerful machines.
So we're going to go through and have a look at this in Protect. We'll select telemetry. We'll edit this. Note you can have multiple configurations here as well if you need. We can choose a bunch of options in terms of what we want in terms of logging. So if you have specific compliance needs, you can generally have a balance between how much information you're getting off of these devices. So let's add in a simple log file collection as well. So I'm going to actually put in var/log/jamf.log. This is specifying a specific log location here. This is just an example. If you have maybe apps that actually have a certain log file collection point as well, you could actually add these in as well. There's also the support for multiple of these, so don't think that you can just put in one. But yeah, what's it look like on the other side, Adam?
Yeah, so here's a snapshot of what it looks like in a SIEM solution. So in this case, it's actually Splunk. So here, security teams get insight into process executions, built-in activity from Protect or other built-in security features. So the monitoring stuff we mentioned earlier, this can all be fed into SIEM solutions or the background task management items that are being installed. But this also is quite a nice slide. I did tell you all to come to the front. Those at the back might not be able to read the text here. Don't worry, you don't need to read the text. The reason why I'm showing this, it just highlights the difference that telemetry gives you in terms of the visibility and data. The top is what you get from Pro or MDM, and it's often done on a schedule, whereas telemetry gives you all of this data in real time as soon as it's happening. And there's also additional use cases outside of threat hunting that telemetry can be utilized. So if you want to know any unauthorized and risky software that's being used, or maybe you want to just measure the average performance of applications across systems, you can do so. Cool, so there we have it. Our castle is secured for centuries to come. And for our visual learners, nice sort of bento diagram of the essentials for a secure Apple deployment. And then advanced. Sorry, I appreciate some of you didn't quite catch that. We can share these images with you. So there's one more thing. We are not stopping there. So we are constantly developing our product and building new walls, sharper arrows, smarter guards. And yeah, thank you for AI for helping me build this futuristic castle. So load of features coming soon. We won't go through these individually. Some of these have actually recently been released, but these is all going to help you with that secure macOS deployment. So hopefully you all now realize or appreciate the importance of thinking about security from the start when it comes to deploying a load of new Mac devices. So yeah, that is our session. I think there is the option to leave feedback. The feedback from Munich, the main one was great castles pictures. So hopefully, if nothing else, you've been entertained by that. But yeah, thank you all for your time and attention during this session.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Maybe one last thing to add, if you don't mind. Keep in mind, we've got the live labs at the end of the day. So if you want to come talk to me and Adam later on, do come find us. Maybe share how you deployed 1,000 Macs, right? Or how you looked at it from a security lens. So we'll be around. Do come find us at the end of the day.
Great reminder. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you.